UFC Fight Night Ribas versus Namajunas. Full card predictions. Starting at the bottom of the card, making my way to the top as always. I recorded this a few times, messed it up. This won't be too long of a video because I've already done this like 2 or 3 times now, so I'll just make it quick. Usman, McParkin. I'm picking McParkin. I think he's a better technical striker than Usman. I think Usman on the feet is pretty bad. He's rigid, he's stiff, he has power. I know he has power. Anything can happen at heavyweight. If he lands a big punch, yeah, he can knock out McParkin. But over 3 rounds, I don't think he wins a striking decision against Parkin. I think Parkin's a better striker. I think the wrestling probably cancels out between these two. I think it'll stay on the feet, and I think Parkin will just outstrike him for 3 rounds. Usman probably will push him up against the cage and try to get some cage control, maybe try to take him down. But if Parkin stays on his feet, if he can disengage from that, get back to striking range, I think he can win this fight against Usman. Like I said, outside of the power, don't think Usman has much to offer on the feet. As shown in the Jake Collier fight, he lost. He was losing the striking to Jake Collier. Don't care what anyone says. He was losing the striking to Jake Collier. I don't like to see that. I don't like to see that at all. He had to wrestle to win that fight, which obviously is the path of least resistance. Wrestling Jake Collier is taking him down, getting top control, but I mean, he didn't look good in the striking, and I think that's where this fight will take place. So I'm going with McParkin. Next up, Igor Severino versus Andre Lima. I'm not going to say too much about this fight. Both guys, 25-year-old Andre Lima, 20-year-old Igor Severino, both very young guys. Both guys have a bright future in the sport, especially at flyweight. I'll go with Severino, not with confidence at all. And the reason is because, one, he's super young, so you never know. With some of these guys that are like 20, 21, like you don't know if they're going to do something stupid just because, maybe like um, go for leg locks. Or you saw it with Mendonca in the fight against, who was it? Why am I forgetting now? Um, Nate Maness, if you guys remember that, the Nate Maness, it's a random memory. I don't know why that's the first one that came to mind, but if you guys remember that Nate Maness and Mendonca fight, Mendonca, young prospect, everyone was super high on him, and he did something stupid and went for a leg lock against Maness and got finished for it. Maybe one of these guys does something like that. I don't see that though. I think both guys just have a competitive striking fight on the feet. I think this is going to could be a war. Um, Both guys super good as far as just biting down the mouthpiece and sitting down in the pocket and trading. Both are good strikers. I could see this being just a great fight. I'll go with Severino just because he's the underdog, but I could see it going either way. Both guys are talented and will have a good future in the UFC. Montserrat Rendon, Daria. Didn't tape this one. Not going to say much about it. I'll pick Daria, but I'll just go past that one. Not waste any time. Stephen Wynn and Jarno Aarons. I have a little bit more to say about this one. Jarno Aarons. I'm actually going to pick Jarno Aarons to win. No one else is picking him. 91% of people on Stephen Wynn, 9% on Aarons. So everyone's basically saying Aarons is going to lose on here. Not saying it's impossible. I mean, Stephen Wynn could outstrike him for 3 rounds. He could just be the better technical striker for 3. That could happen, but Stephen Wynn, one thing with him is he hasn't fought anybody. I mean, he's fought AJ Cunningham, Theo Rayon, Jorge Juarez, lost by knockout, flying knee, got starched by Alon Cruz. He was flatlined. I know it's flying knee, but put him out cold badly. And then Brandon Bailey beat him. So he's beating a very low level of competition. Jordan Aarons, sure, he hasn't fought super, super, super high level guys, but he's fought UFC caliber competition in his last 2, William Gomi and Sung Woo Choi. And he had moments against both of those guys. It's not like he was completely outclassed. He had moments against both of those guys. Both of those fights were competitive. He almost submitted William Gomi in the third round of their fight. He was very close to submitting Gomi. And then against Sung Woo Choi, something that I'm factoring into this fight actually, is round 2, Jarno Aarons lands a clean uppercut, just a vicious uppercut on Sung Woo Choi, perfectly placed, drops him, and you could tell for a second Sung Woo Choi was out of it. For a second, he was out of it, stayed in the fight, and actually ended up winning a decision. So Aarons couldn't find the finish there, but if that happens to Stephen Wynn, Maybe he does get knocked out cold from that because that was vicious. And Aaron's does have that power to knock guys out. He's done it in the fight against Max Hogan, landed the uppercut and hurt him and finished him. So like Aaron's does have that KO ability. He does have a lot of power in his hands. So and he does have decent kicks as well from what I've seen of him. He throws some very hard kicks as well. Um, and he's not the most technical. I think technically speaking, the better striker is Stephen Wynn, but I don't know if that'll matter too much here. I think this is a pretty big step up. Stephen Wynn's been fighting guys on the regional scene for the most part, or on the contender series that aren't, that have nothing to offer him. He's fighting guys that have nothing to offer him. AJ Cunningham is just going to walk forward and, no disrespect, he's just going to be a punching bag. That's what he's going to be. I don't see that happening with Jarno Aarons. I think Jarno Aarons is going to make this a real fight. I think he's going to push Stephen Wynn, and Stephen Wynn's hittable. So even AJ Cunningham was hitting Stephen Wynn and made him bleed. So I think Jarno Aarons can land on him. I think Jarno Aarons could possibly knock him out. I don't know what's going to happen if Aaron's decides to push the grappling here against Wynn, but I do see Aaron's getting this one done over Stephen Wynn as an underdog. Next is Miles Johns versus Cody Gibson. I'm going to go with Miles Johns here. I'm not super confident. The line's close. A lot of the lines on this fight night are super close. So it's a lot of competitive fights. This one's probably going to be competitive. The reason I'm going with Johns, there's only really two reasons. I think this fight is probably going to play out on the feet. But the reason I have to go with Johns is because, one, he's younger, 29 years old. He's about to be 30, but to the 36-year-old Cody Gibson at bantamweight, once you get to that certain age of bantamweight, you start to slow down a little bit, especially against younger guys in their prime, especially guys like Miles Johns who are kind of on the rise right now or, really starting to get into their prime. Not that I think Miles Johns is some next level fighter, but he is dangerous. He does have that one punch knockout power. He can knock you out, especially that right hand. Like, he is dangerous with that overhand. So that's something that Cody Gibson has to watch out for. I know Gibson's never been knocked out before, but just because he's never been knocked out doesn't mean you can't be knocked out. So there's that aspect to it. And the other thing for Miles Johns is, I think he might try to push the wrestling a little bit in this fight. Not that he really likes to do that. He kind of is a guy that likes to strike, but I could see him trying to mix things up against Gibson here. I think that would be a smart idea. To at least, I'm not saying mix in like heavy wrestling, but maybe try to shoot a takedown or two just to kind of give Gibson a few different looks in this fight. So I'll go with Johns, not super confidently. Gibson had a really good fight with Brad Katona. Before that, he beat a few guys like Mando Gutierrez on the Ultimate Fighter, which isn't shown on here, but he did win 2 fights on the Ultimate Fighter. Cody Gibson did, which is why he got the Brad Katona fight in the first place, which was for the Ultimate Fighter finale. But against Miles Johns, I just think Johns, really, he's coming off of 2 wins. Didn't look good in the Castaneda fight, but the last 2 he did look good. Vince Morales, Dan Argueta. Dan Argueta, I know, was overturned to a no contest because of a substance, but I forget I don't know what substance it was, but regardless of that, I think Miles Johns probably gets it done over Cody Gibson. Ricardo Ramos versus Julian Erosa. I'd probably pick Erosa if his chin wasn't so bad. I do think his chin is pretty, you can't trust his chin. I'm just going to say it as it is. You can't trust Erosa's chin. I'm going with Ricardo Ramos. I just, I know a lot of what Ramos does. He does throw a lot of spinning stuff, but that could catch, if that catches Julian Erosa, it's going to knock him down and probably put him out or hurt him badly enough to finish the fight. Ramos does have that ability to hurt guys. He's done it multiple times. He actually has 2 spinning back elbow wins in the UFC. He beat Ayman Zahabi with a spinning back elbow. He beat Danny Chavez with a spinning back elbow. Does he have 3 or 2? I guess it's just 2, but the guy does have that ability to knock you out on the feet. And I know Erosa, you could say, if this goes 3 rounds, or actually even in the grappling department, Ramos does make a lot of grappling mistakes. So I understand why the line's fairly competitive, fairly close, because Ramos in the fight against Charles Jourdain did make a grappling mistake there, got submitted. So he isn't the highest IQ fighter. So really, you're taking your pick between fight IQ on one side versus a bad chin on the other. Typically, you'd probably take the fight IQ over the bad chin, but or I'm sorry, you would take the guy that has the bad chin but good fight IQ versus the opposite. But in this case, I'm going to go with Ramos. I just don't like Arosa. He's got knocked down in his last two. Fernando Padilla and Alex Caceres. Alex Caceres, sure, he's not really known for being like a super like he's not a guy that knocks a ton of people. I know it's a head kick, but like I mean, Arosa's been knocked out what 7 times in his career. He's had so many professional fights. He's been knocked out 7 times. Had so many professional fights. I think Ramos can catch him here in a three, especially over 3 rounds. Arosa will eventually make a mistake. Ramos will catch him and finish him. That's my prediction. Ricardo Ramos wins KO TKO or club and sub, but I know Arosa's never been sub, so most likely KO TKO for Ricardo Ramos. Next fight we have is Trey Ogden versus Kurt Holobaugh. Ogden versus Holobaugh. Super interesting fight. I'm actually going to go with Kurt Holobaugh as an underdog. Trey Ogden as a favorite is very interesting. Like I feel like Trey Ogden's the type of guy where if he's an underdog, he can always make fights close and competitive. But as a favorite, he's just not the type of guy you want to trust as a favorite. Trey Ogden. One, because he doesn't have he has no knockout equity because he's never knocked anybody out. Not just in the UFC. Trey Ogden has 0 knockouts on his entire record. So that's something people have to look at. If you can see here, no knockouts, KOs, TKOs on his entire record. He does have 11 submission wins. Also has been submitted 3 times, and then is 5-3 in fights that go the distance. So Ogden is a guy who he can grapple, and he has gone 15 minutes multiple times. He beat Daniel Zellhuber, and looking at that, people are going to look like and say, "Oh, Daniel Zellhuber." I know he beat Daniel Zellhuber. That fight, I think it was more of Zellhuber's, first UFC fight jitters. I don't think he performed to the best of his ability. If we saw the same Daniel Zellhuber that we saw against Francisco Prado, if we saw that same Zellhuber in the fight against Trey Ogden, I think Daniel Zellhuber finishes Trey Ogden or beats him up badly for 3 rounds. So I don't think we saw the same Zellhuber. I think that's probably why the line is what it is. And the fight with Trey Ogden and Nicholas Moda. Trey Ogden beat up Nicholas Moda for 3 rounds, outstruck him on the feet, and then took him down and nearly submitted him. Even though the fight was stopped prematurely before, because Moda didn't actually tap or anything, but he would have lost the fight regardless, even if it went the distance. But I mean, beating Nicholas Moda doesn't really impress me. Obviously, the Daniel Zellhuber win is impressive, but as I said, I think it's more of Zellhuber just not fighting good than it is that Trey Ogden fought amazing. Lost to Jordan Levitt by split. I just think that Kurt Holobaugh is a guy who can match Ogden in the grappling. I think he can match him in the grappling, and I think he's a better striker. I just think he has more. Sure, I know Trey Ogden can dance around for 15 minutes and try not to get touched by Kurt Holobaugh, but I feel like Holobaugh might be able to put it on him here, or try to do that. And I think he's fine in the grappling. Kurt Holobaugh is a good grappler. Most of his wins, actually, I think over half of his wins, 10 of them are by submission. So I'll go with Kurt Holobaugh here to get it done over Trey Ogden as an underdog. Another one where I'm not super confident in it, but I feel like both guys are fairly even in their game, and I'll take the underdog in Holobaugh. Already on the main card, we have Luis Pejulo versus Fernando Padilla. I'll go with Fernando Padilla. Another one where I'm picking Fernando Padilla because he's fought better competition. Throughout his career, he's fought the better competition. That's why he's 15-5. I know he's lost a few fights, and you look at the 8-1 Luis Pejulo, and a lot of people might be picking him. But if you look at Luis, his last fight was against Robbie Ring on the Contender Series. beat up Robbie Ring and finished him. Lewis is a good boxer. He is actually pretty good on the feet, and he is dangerous, especially early. But that's one thing I also want to talk about with Lewis is in the fight against Robbie Ring. He finished him. Good win there, kinda. Although Robbie Ring was very unproven, a guy who's he didn't fight anybody on the regional scene. I looked through his record. I'll actually show his record here just for the sake of it. You look at Robbie Ring. 6-1 now. And if you look, he fought 0-0. He fought 0-0, 8-6. Like he's fought pretty much nobody to get to Lewis. So Lewis beat him. Not the most impressive win there. Haber Federico Pereira. I watched that fight. Lewis was starting to slow down and get hit. He gassed himself out. It looked like in round one. I know he actually he found the finish, but in that round one that I was watching, he was throwing a lot and kind of got a little bit tired and was starting to get hit a little bit. Still got the win, but against Fernando Padilla, Padilla's a guy that's never been knocked out. He's hard to finish. If Luis comes out and has a fast round one, like a quick start, if he can't get Padilla out of there, that could be trouble for him, especially if he starts to get tired. I think Padilla's fought the much better competition. If you just look at their records, I mean, Lewis has fought all guys that are just, all regional guys, whereas Padilla, he's had 2 UFC fights so far, knocked out Julian Erosa in the first round, lost to Kyle Nelson in a competitive fight, went the distance. Kyle Nelson is a veteran in the game. I know he's not like the best fighter, but Nelson's an underrated guy. He's not a terrible fighter. He's a veteran, so lost a close fight to him. And if you just look through his record, I mean, the guy's fought a lot of, Dan Ige, didn't get knocked out by Dan Ige, went the distance with him. Dan Ige is a guy that has a ton of power, so I would just go with Fernando Padilla just because I think he's fought the better level of competition. And he's also a year younger, 2 years younger as well, so more time to improve for Padilla. I'll go with him. Next on the main card is Billy Quarantillo versus Yusuf Salal. Tough one for me. Very tough one, actually. I'm gonna go with Yusuf Salal here. I'm gonna go with Yusuf Salal over Billy Q. Most people are picking Billy Q. It's a dangerous one. This is one where I can look back and be like, why did I not pick Billy Q? Because I know he has the cardio. I know he has the ability to just pressure in rounds 2 and 3 and really put the pace on his opponents, put the volume on. But the problem with Billy Q is I don't think I really like watching Billy Q. Billy Q is a super fun guy to watch, super entertaining. But his striking, his striking is based on you getting tired and him pouring on the volume. I don't think his striking, if you're not gassed out, if you're not tired, if you can match his pace, which is super hard to do in rounds 2 and 3, but if you don't kind of, break to the pressure of Billy Q, you can beat Billy Q. And I think that's very hard to do. I understand that. But a guy that's 27 years old, I know it's also short notice, so people are going to automatically think, oh, he doesn't have the cardio to do it. But Zalal hasn't shown like bad cardio in any of his fights. He hasn't shown that he has bad cardio. I think he's got good enough cardio to go for 3 rounds. I think Billy Q might, maybe in the 3rd round, he might start to get tired. He might start to gas out a little bit. But I think he's a better technical striker than Billy Q. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Just by looking at them. If you look at their, I know the 1st round isn't the same in Billy Q fights as the, 2nd and especially the 3rd round. But if you look at Billy Q early, like he's getting pieced up early by Hernandez, by Damon Jackson. Like he's losing those 1st rounds. And I know he's doing that. He doesn't mind losing. Billy Q doesn't mind losing the 1st round because he knows he's going to put the pace on in rounds 2 and 3. But, what if Zalal, keeps ripping those body kicks that he throws? What if he starts to, because Zalal does throw good body shots. He really does. What if he starts to mix in kicks and stuff to the body of Billy Q and starts to try to slow him down a little bit? I'm going to go with Yusuf Salal here. Billy Q on the older end, taking a lot of damage in his career. Yusuf Salal, underrated fighter, I believe. I know he's fought 3 guys. He's coming into the UFC. This is his 2nd run in the UFC. But the guys that he's fought are good competition. I know Billy Q's only lost a good competition, but like Yusuf Salal went to a majority decision against Damon Blackshear, ripped him in the body and dropped him with a body shot. Dropped Blackshear, nearly had him out of there. Blackshear was hurt bad with the body by Yusuf Salal in that fight. Went to a split with Sean Woodson, and then went to decision with Sungwoo Choi and Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria being obviously the champion now. So I just think that Yusuf Salal and in those fights, I know he lost a lot of those fights, but he was super. He's 27 now. In those fights, he was those 2 3 years ago. He was 25, 24 in those fights. So he's only getting better. He's only improving. I think technically speaking, he's very good. I think the only concern I have with him here is his cardio. If he has good, if he has the cardio to go 3 rounds with Billy Q, I think he can beat him in a striking matchup. So give me Yusuf Salal over Billy Q. Dangerous pick. Billy Q could pour on the pressure if Salal gets tired, but I feel like Salal winning round one is very, it's going to happen at a high rate. Billy Q, if the fight goes 3 rounds, he'll probably win the third. So it's your choice. Who do you think is going to win the second? I'll take Salal. Next up, we have Peyton Talbot versus Cameron Simon. Oh man, this card is I'm either gonna do really good or I'm gonna do really bad on this card. I'm going with Cameron Simon. I'm going with Cameron Simon. I've been going against the girl actually a lot more, 52 to 48%, so it's almost even. Um, the people have bet up Peyton Talbot or the someone's betting on Talbot because the lines were even. I think the odds were about even, and then they started shifting in favor of Talbot, and now Talbot's like minus 150 instead of even odds. So have bet Talbot. Cameron Simon, on the other hand, is who I'm picking, and that's because Peyton Talbot, you look at his fights, I mean, sure, he's beaten up some guys, and people are comparing him. I've seen people comparing him to Sean O'Malley. I'm like, you guys need to relax a little bit. The guy beat Nick Aguirre after getting dominated in round one, and you're comparing him to Sean O'Malley. Well, let's relax a little bit. Let's pump the brakes on this, on saying that he's Sean O'Malley's level because he beat Nick Aguirre after getting dominated in round one. So let's not say that. He also lost round one to Reyes Cortez. So it's just a stupid thing. Like I saw that and I was like, you can't tell me this guy's anywhere near Sean O'Malley's level if he loses round one to Reyes Cortez and Nick Aguirre. I'm going with Cameron Simon. I feel like people are just overrating Talbot. People think he's this next dynamic. He's this amazing striker. He's the future of the division. It's like, is he? Is he? I mean, Cameron Simon. I know Cameron Simon can fight hard for 3 rounds. I know he's going to give Peyton Talbot a tough fight. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Peyton Talbot is a guy that sometimes can be a slow starter. I think Simon can take round one. And it could be another one of those fights where Talbot starts to get going late, but Cameron Simon stole round one. And round two, maybe Cameron Simon can steal round two as well, because Simon's a guy that will keep pressuring and he'll keep fighting. He's a guy he's out of the same camp as Dricus Du Plessis, obviously. Good friends with him. That effect has to wear off somehow. That Dricus is the champion now. That has to motivate Simon to want to do his best as well and keep winning for the gym and for his country and for himself. So I know there's are some external factors, but I mean, all that goes into it. I feel like Simon's a more dedicated fighter. You look at Talbot, and he's like, you look at his, some pictures on Instagram, and you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? Is he like just going to parties and stuff all the time? I know Cameron Simon's just grinding in the gym every day, trying to get better. I'm going with Cameron Simon. He lost to C-Rod. I'm just gonna say it. I know I didn't give C-Rod any credit. I picked against him multiple times. C-Rod is a good fighter. I'll just say it. I think he was a weight bully. He was a weight bully at 135, but I think C-Rod has proven that he's a talented fighter. So I'll say that. So I don't think that loss for Simon has aged bad whatsoever. And I think here against Talbot, he's being overlooked. So give me Cameron Simon to get it done. Next fight is Edmund Shabazian versus AJ Dobson. I think people are just not high on Edmund Shabazian anymore because of him losing 4 of his last 5. But if you look at Edmund Shabazian's opponents, they've all been the ones that he's been losing to are top 15. He lost to Fluffy Hernandez, who's in the top 15. He beat Dalcha in round 2. Lost to Nasruddin Namavov, who's top 10. Lost to Jack Manson, who's top 10 as well. And then lost to Derek Brunson, who at the time, 3.5 years ago, was, pretty close to the title shot. He was like top 5, I believe, top 10 at worst. So Edmund Shabazian has only lost to top 10, top 15 level guys. He's losing to the best of the best in the division, and he's only 26 years old. So he's losing a lot of those fights. He's been finished a few times. People are overlooking him now, and some people are saying he's going to lose this one. This is a huge step down. This is a step down from Felipe Hernandez. This is a step down from Imavov. This is a step down from Hermanson and Brunson. This is AJ Dobson. This is not a top 10 guy, not a top 15 guy. This is a guy that's a winnable fight for Edmund. I think the UFC is trying to get him back on track. You look at the last kind of layup that they gave Edmund. He beat Dalcha. That was a layup, and he won. He won that fight. AJ Dobson, his only win in the UFC is against Stefan Nchukwi. Before that, he lost to Armin Petrosian and Jacob Malkoun. And Edmund Shabazian, before his loss, I know he's on a losing streak, but he is a good striker. I mean, and he's shown that. He's shown that he's a good striker. He beat Brad Tavares with a head kick in round one, submitted Jack Marshman round one. And I know some of these guys that you're looking at, some of these guys aren't the best fighters, a lot of these guys that he's finishing in round one. But the fact of the matter is that he finished, beat Brad Tavares with a head kick, um, fought some of the best guys in the division, lost to them, but had, moments against some of them. AJ Dobson, I just feel like, not that he's a bad fighter, but he's getting put up against a fighter who is younger, 26 to 32, younger, more experience, fought the better guys. I feel like this is a layup spot for Edmund. Um, as long as he doesn't gas out, that's the problem. His cardio has always been a concern, but if he doesn't gas out, and even if he finds, I could see him finding a first round finish. Dobson, hasn't been finished, but anything's possible. Edmund is very dangerous on the feet, but I do see him getting it done as long as he doesn't gas out if it does go 3. But I do like Edmund to win this one. Co-main event of the evening, we have Carl Williams taking on Justin Tafa. I like Carl Williams here over Justin Tafa. I like Williams. He's a better wrestler, which is what it's going to come down to in this fight. Tafa, he has the KO threat, and that's about it. I think on the field, well, I don't think Williams has too much to offer on the field. I think it's a striker grappler, striker wrestler type of matchup, however you want to call it. The problem with Tafa, I'm done with these. I'm done with these guys. I'm done with the Tafas, the Tai Tuivasas. I pick these guys all the time because I think they're just going to stuff the takedowns and knock their opponent out, and they just don't do it. They just they give up takedowns, they give up control, and they get submitted. It happens over and over and over, and I keep thinking it's not going to happen. I keep thinking, I thought Tuivasa would beat Tybura. I'm not falling for the trap again. I'm taking Carl Williams. I think he takes down Justin Tafa and mauls him and probably finishes him. I'm taking Carl Williams. There's not much else to say about it. It's a pretty binary fight. Either Tafa lands a huge bomb in round 1 and knocks out Williams, or Williams just out-grapples him, either submits him or just out-wrestles him to a win. That's really the only 2 options I see happening. So I'll go with Carl Williams to get it done. And last but not least is the main event, which is actually a super interesting main event. I think it's a good main event. I know some people are complaining about it, but I am a fan of Thug Rose. I am a fan of Rose Namajunas. She's taking on Amanda Ribas, who is a pretty good fighter in her own right. I'm going with Rose Namajunas here. I'm going with Rose. I think that, I feel like people are starting to disrespect Rose a little bit. I know she's a favorite. I get it. And I know there are question marks. She's not with Trevor Whitman anymore, which I do think she should be with Trevor Whitman. I do think Whitman has helped Kamaru Usman and Justin Gaethje and herself quite a lot. So I think being with the coach that has brought you to the dance, I think that's what she should be doing. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a pretty big mistake. I don't like that for her, especially here. But the thing I see with Ribas is she has a bad chin. Her striking is, especially her striking defense. Her striking offense, she can pressure and land a lot of strikes, especially as the fight goes on. But man, her chin is a big question mark. It's a big concern. She's been knocked out before. She's been finished in fights. and she just doesn't have good striking defense. She just doesn't. She leaves her chin right up in the air. Like Rose could I could see Rose head kicking her and knocking her out. Like I really could, just because she leaves her head just right there to be hit. And Ribas is just so open, not just with kicks, with punches, with everything. Like I think Rose probably can outclass her in the early rounds. Obviously, if the fight goes late, maybe Rose starts to get tired, and Ribas just puts the pressure on and starts wearing on her, and who knows, maybe the tide starts changing. You never know. Sometimes Rose gets a little bit, in fights she doesn't look the best. The Carlos Barza fight was a terrible look for her. Rose has had some moments in fights where you just question, like, why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? Why isn't she not throwing? So there is certain factors with Rose that makes it hard to trust her. It's hard to trust Rose, but she's fought so much better competition. She's fought the best of the best. Jessica Andrade, Wei Li twice, beat Joanna. She's beaten Wei Li, Joanna. She's beaten the best of the best um, at 115, and they're fighting at 125. The last fight that Rose had was at 125 against Manon Fiorot. That wasn't that bad of a fight. I feel like people are looking at that fight like it was not a bad fight for Rose at all. She lost to Manon Fiorot. Manon Fiorot is a bigger girl than Rose, and it was a competitive fight. Rose won round 3, and she broke her hand in round 1. She broke her hand in round 1, and she still went the distance and won the third round. I don't think people can look at that performance and act like she was outclassed. Like, it was a competitive fight. She lost a competitive fight to a really good striker, and that's it. It was a 3-round striking fight. I don't think that drops her stock that much. I mean, Amanda Ribas, she beat Luana Pinheiro, and she got finished by Macy Barber. You know what I mean? She got finished by Macy Barber, beat Viviane Araújo, lost to Caitlin Sermonara, Caitlin Chikagian, and then beat Virna Jandiroba. So she's beaten a decent level. She's beaten, actually, I'd say, a good level of competition. She's beaten a good level of competition, but she hasn't beaten the Wei Lees. She hasn't beaten the Joanna. She hasn't beaten the Andrade. She hasn't beaten those type of fighters who are the top of the division. So I think that'll be the difference here. I think the 5 rounds, Ribas, maybe she does pour it on late. Maybe she does have that cardio edge, but Rose has been 5 rounds before. I think she'll know what to do in a 5-round fight. I'm going to go with Rose Namajunas to get back on track. It would really suck to see her lose 3. If she loses this one, if Rose loses this one, it's probably over for her. Just being honest, it's probably time to look at calling it quits if she loses to someone like Amanda Ribas. But nonetheless, I am going to pick Rose. I'm going to pick her to win. I think she has the ability, and even in the grappling, I don't think Ribas. Sure, she might take down Rose. I don't think she's just going to out-grapple her and keep her on the ground. Just be able to maintain like top control or even submit her. I think that's going to be hard to do. And in the striking, I definitely favor Rose in the striking, especially early. So I'll go with Rose Namajunas in the main event. And there it is, UFC Fight Night, Ribas versus Namajunas. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.